All right, so in this video, I talk about the dark web, get into some of the technology behind it, as well as dispelling some myths about the dark web. Now, this video is my longer version of that discussion, and I do have a shorter one, so it's just under 8 minutes. If you wish to see that, it's good. There's going to be a QR code on your screen here in a moment. And feel free to watch that one. Video is just a lot more in depth, so if you do have the time, it is well worth watching. But I do have the shorter one there just in case. And in the future, I'm probably going to stick more with around the 8-minute video format, just make a lot more of them when it comes to talking about the dark web, darknet markets, and different things like that, because it is just a massive topic, and I love talking about it anyway, so why not? Stay tuned for those videos, and I will see you all in the next one. Thanks for watching.
Cue dope intro.
Give you my heart.
Okay, so let's talk about this thing that we call the dark web. I was making a video recently, and there's going to be a QR code on your screen right now if you wish to watch the video I made about darknet markets. And as I was in the middle of making that video, it occurred to me that I had started making a video talking about the dark web, but had not finished it. And basically, the intention had been to do dark web and then do a follow-up video about darknet markets, but in the grand scheme of things, I ended up uploading the darknet market video first, so I went a little out of order. But anyway, so let's talk about it. So what is the dark web? Well, the term dark web is, first of all, not to be overly technical, but not a real term. The term that people are looking for when they say dark web is overlay networks, sometimes called hidden networks. And what these are networks that exist outside of the World Wide Web, which is, of course, the largest network utilizing the infrastructure of the internet. Now, when I say internet, at least in this context, what I'm referring to is the physical infrastructure that makes the virtual connectivity possible, the virtual space, so to speak. And that would be anything from the Wi-Fi router that it's in probably in your house or at least down the street at Starbucks, to the transoceanic cables that run underneath the world's oceans, or most of the oceans. They haven't yet laid a cable across the Arctic Ocean for obvious reasons, I guess. I wouldn't volunteer for that trip, at least if they ever did lay one up there. But at any rate, every other ocean in the world, the Pacific, the Atlantic, the Mediterranean Sea, the Indian Ocean, and so forth, they all have cables running underneath them, fiber optic cables. I remember checking a little while back, and at that time at least, which was about a year ago, there were about 300 cables in total, crisscrossing most of the oceans of the world. So things like that, and other bits of physical infrastructure, routers that your internet service provider uses to route the traffic through these cables into their destination servers and so forth. All of these things are what are taken together basically the internet in the physical sense. Well, there are a number of networks that utilize this physical infrastructure, and of course the largest network is going to be the World Wide Web. Nowadays you don't have to actually type in www, but your browser just kind of adds that in there for you, and that just simply stands for World Wide Web. Though, as one comedian pointed out, World Wide Web has 3 syllables, www has 9, so it's not really short for anything. But jokes aside, the World Wide Web is by far the largest network, but it is not the only one. There are a number of networks that exist outside of that ecosystem that, as far as I know, universally use different types of encryption to keep communication secure and private, anonymous, and so forth. And these are referred to as hidden networks. The largest of these is going to be the Tor network. Tor is an acronym. It stands for the Onion Router. The second largest, as far as I am aware at least, is the Invisible Internet Project, or I2P. So when I say the largest hidden network, I'm referring to the number of users. There are other metrics we could use, but I'm just looking at the number of users because that is the simplest way to approach this. So Tor, the Onion Router, by far the largest number of users. One One little thing with Tor, though, is that the majority of those users, last I checked, it was around 98%, are actually using, they're using the Tor network. They're using, of course, the Tor browser or perhaps a third-party app like Orbot to access the Tor network, but they're actually accessing regular websites on the World Wide Web as opposed to, called onions that are on the Tor network. So as far as number of users, I'm not sure if I should count that 98% that are using it for on the World Wide Web. So maybe I2P is the larger of the two networks, because in I2P's case, you kind of can use the I2P network to access websites, regular websites, but it's very limited. So in general, you're going to be using I2P to access actual I2P sites, except for Monero, the cryptocurrency. They have an implementation where their wallet can use the I2P network, the Invisible Internet Project network, to further add a layer of anonymity and privacy to the transactions that occur using Monero. Which, for more information about Monero, I am going to be making another video soon, so just watch out for that. I'm just going to be talking all about Monero and its inherent advantages, at least in terms of privacy and anonymity, over Bitcoin. It's a lot less convenient than Bitcoin, but in terms of overall security, anonymity, and so forth, it is light years ahead of Bitcoin, to be honest. I talked a little bit about what the dark web is. I want to dispel a few myths about, basically what it isn't. Okay, so I ran across this rather irritating and terrible article on Norton's website. Unsurprisingly, Norton published this article. But that's a rant. That's a rant I don't want to get on, because I won't get off for a while. Anyway, so the term dark web sounds ominous, and there's a reason for that. No, there's not really a reason for that. It's actually a made-up term anyway. The real term is hidden networks. So yeah, the dark web is part of the internet. Wait, hold on. But the internet, at least in this context of this discussion, would be referring to physical infrastructure. So I'm not sure what they're really getting at here, but the dark web is part of the internet. I think they're trying to say the dark web is part of the World Wide Web, which would be completely wrong. And made up of hidden sites that you can't find through a conventional browsers. Yes, you can't find them because they're not on the World Wide Web. Browsers are used to browse the World Wide Web, or at least normal browsers. Then of course you can't find them because they're not there. I mean, not on that network. It'd be like going to the Himalayas and looking for a desert. You're not going to find it. You're in the wrong dang ecosystem. Well, you're not going to find hidden sites or hidden services, as they're sometimes called, or onions. In the case of the Tor network, they're referred to as onions. You're not going to find these onions no matter how hard you look, because your browser cannot access them. It does not have the ability. So anyway, instead you must rely on browsers and search engines designed specifically to unearth these hidden sites. There is so much wrong with that. I don't even know where to start with that one. The part about the browsers, yes, you must rely on special software, let's say, which can take the form of a browser, and usually does. In the case of Tor, at least, typically you're going to be using the Tor browser. As opposed, you could use Orbot, or you can use you can run a Tor circuit on your router if your router is set up for that. If you're running, for instance, OpenWRT, which is a browser firmware that at least some versions of it allow you to run a Tor circuit. And there's another video I should make right there about setting up a Tor circuit on a browser or on a router. There we go. So when it mentions you must rely on search engines, though, there's a lot wrong with that, because there's Torch on the Tor network, which is it's more of an indexing site, I would say, than a search engine. There are no, dark web Googles or dark web DuckDuckGo. There's no such thing as a sort of equivalent to these search engines that we use on the regular web, because of the nature of how the sites are encrypted and hidden and whatever. It basically means that you can't have a search engine in the usual sense of the word. So I'm not even sure what they're saying. All right, so I feel like I should interject something here. I don't want to cause any confusion, because there is a
version of DuckDuckGo's search engine, and maybe Google too, but I don't know. I don't use Google, so I don't know. But there's a version of DuckDuckGo's site, their search engine on the Tor network. So there is a darknet DuckDuckGo in that sense, but you're not using that to necessarily search for the dark website. It's not searching the dark web. It's searching the clear net or the World Wide Web, whichever term you prefer to use there. You can search for onion links that may be posted on Reddit or some other ClearNet site, which it's usually not a good idea to do that, just FYI. But you're not going to be actually searching, the Tor network itself. So I just wanted to interject that there. Basically, search engines, darknet search engines, are effectively indexing sites. They are not, they are completely different than what we would think of as a search engine on the World Wide Web. So yeah. Continue.
Browsers and search engines designed specifically to unearth these hidden sites. And you're not unearthing the site. You're getting yourself onto the network, and from there, finding the sites in most cases is going to be relatively easy. Sites on the dark web use encryption software so their visitors and owners can remain anonymous and hide their locations. That's fairly accurate, extremely simplistic and generalized, but reasonably accurate all the same. It's why the dark web is home to so much illegal activity. I do have a problem with that because yes, a lot of illegal stuff happens on these hidden networks, on Tor, I2P, or whatever. There's a lot of illegal stuff that happens, yes. But there's a lot of illegal stuff that happens on the World Wide Web. So, it's not that they're wrong. It's just the point is kind of moot, in my opinion. If you tap into the dark web, you'll find everything from illegal drug and gun sales. Well, definitely the drug part. There's a lot of that being bought and sold on hidden networks. Gun sales, I'm sure there's sites somewhere, but I've only run across maybe 1, 2 at most. So, the thing that they mentioned that second on their list, illegal drug and gun sales, it's like there's actually not a lot of gun sales happening, at least not that I've ever discovered. And this part I have is completely inaccurate. It says, but you should know that there are legitimate reasons to visit this hidden region of the web. Okay, so it's not what they're doing is they're conflating the idea of the deep web, non-indexed sites, which I will talk about in a minute. But they're conflating the idea of the deep web versus the dark web. The dark web is not a hidden region of the web, of the World Wide Web, that is. It is a completely separate network, or at least there's more than one network, but they collectively are. This thing that we call the dark web is a collection of I'm not even quite sure how many, but at least a dozen separate networks, each one separate from the World Wide Web, and each one separate from each other. As far as the number, I just threw out the number of around 12. Those are at least the ones I am personally familiar with. There are likely many others that I am not familiar with, but I mentioned Tor, I mentioned Invisible Internet Project, aka I2P. There is also Freenet. There is ZeroNet. I'm not sure if those are related because of the similar name, but whatever. Those are the 4 networks that I was able to access to launch from my old Android phone. I am recording this video on my iPhone. I switched over to the dark side, at least that's what my friends told me. But before I switched to iPhone, I had an Android phone and I had the software set up to be able to access all 4 of those networks. Beyond that, there's the Oxen network, which is kind of a hybrid darknet / cryptocurrency blockchain. I'm still trying to wrap my head around that one. But there's Oxen, and then there's the Loki net, which uses Oxen. Loki is really kind of the actual darknet part of Oxen. This part is interesting. It's kind of funny, actually. Looking to buy guns on the dark web? You're not alone. A study published by the Rand Corporation in 2019 found that it's relatively easy to find firearms for sale here. Possibly, now I don't want to say Rand was wrong. Maybe in 2019 it was relatively easy. But I mentioned in my Darknet Market video, but most of these DNMs will not sell firearms. That and fentanyl. And but it's like almost like universal that any of the bigger markets anyway they have an absolute ban on fentanyl and a ban on firearm sales. And for whatever reason, I remember White House, before it was pulled offline, White House Market put a ban on selling fake vaccine cards, which I found absolutely hilarious. You know, that a site that would sell you cocaine, methamphetamine, and other things won't sell you a fake vaccine card, but that's neither here nor there. I thought it was hilarious at the time. So it mentions here that, I'm not going to read the whole paragraph, but basically it talks about how there is in Europe a pretty good market for firearms. Now that actually in Europe would make more sense. I'm located in the United States, so here we can legally buy quite a few different types of guns. The state I live in is a little more restrictive than some, but in most states in this country, I mean, if it isn't fully automatic and isn't a bazooka, it's probably legal. I mean, that's pretty much, you know, things are pretty loose in most states here. It does vary depending on city and state and county and all that. But if there is a good market on the dark web to buy guns, that actually kind of would make sense, because most European countries are pretty restrictive with that. This part is actually quite hilarious. The difference between the dark web and the deep web. So they have a whole paragraph about it, and yet earlier in the article, they completely confused the issue. They kept conflating the two terms. It's easy to confuse the dark web and the deep web, but they aren't the same. Yeah, no kidding, genius. They're not the same, but yet you confuse them in this article. You were confusing it multiple times. So the deep web is also hidden in a way. It's home to benign sites such as people's password-protected email accounts. It's not just home to benign sites, but whatever. Intranets run by businesses, online account pages of customers, government databases, private sites. See, the part that they missed is the most important part about describing the deep web, and that is they're simply pages that are not directly indexed by search engines. Now, the part where they mention, you know, password-protected email accounts, that's accurate. Intranets run by businesses, also accurate. Online bank account pages of consumers, also accurate. That's really just kind of a minority of what constitutes the deep web. Most of the deep web is probably going to be social media pages. So if I'm attempting to view someone's social media page, you know, their Facebook profile, say, I will be able to see some of their information, you know, name, profile picture, for instance. Other things like their photos may or may not be visible. Their posts may or may not be visible depending on their privacy settings. And if they are not visible, then I would need to be a friend with them to be able to view some of these things. And so that would be, in that case, like a friend wall, basically. You know, I have to be a friend to get beyond the wall. The most common, I think, as far as walls go, is paywalls, which, you know, I can access things like Netflix, right? I can Google Netflix and I can get to the Netflix website, but I cannot access their video catalog. Why? Because I need to pay for it or log in. In my case, I'm already a subscriber, but Netflix's video catalog or any of the other streaming sites you can think of, Paramount, Disney, their video catalogs would be considered part of the deep web because it is not directly accessible via search engine. This part here, this gets me. Think of the dark web then as a small subset of the deep web that has become a haven for illegal activity. Oh, I need a wall to bang my head against reading that kind of junk. No, the dark web is not part of the deep web. It's not part of the World Wide Web. It is a separate, not it, because you're talking about multiple networks. So they are separate networks, entirely distinct and different from the World Wide Web. Hence, different and distinct from the deep web, which is a part of the World Wide Web. What they're implying by saying that they've become a haven for illegal activity, saying that they're basically implying that they more or less exist for that purpose, I think. And that is just fundamentally wrong. First of all, plenty of crime, plenty of criminal activity occurs on the regular World Wide Web. And secondly, these networks were not set up for that reason. They were set up mostly, in the case of the Tor network, I can say at least that the Tor network was essentially created to keep freedom of speech alive on the internet. As you know, as we've come to find out in the last couple of years, that censorship in many supposedly free countries like my country, the United States, censorship has become such a common thing. I am grateful that we have networks like Tor and I2P and others. And no, they don't exist for any kind of illegal purpose. Do illegal things happen on these dark nets. Yes, absolutely. But illegal stuff happens on the regular World Wide Web as well. So I'm not sure what point this author is trying to get at. Talking about the dark web, I feel one thing I want to at least touch on, and I may do a video more in depth on this, is whether the anonymity, the encryption algorithms that these dark nets use, are they effective? Well, the answer is yes, they are. Why? Well, let's see. Last time I checked White House, now the White House admins at least claimed that they retired. I didn't hear of them being arrested, so I'm assuming they actually did retire, that they're not lying about that. But anyway, the White House market is gone. But before the White House was pulled offline, I recall seeing over 175,000 different listings on there. There were something like 5,000 vendors active on just White House. And White House, at the time it was alive, was one of the larger markets. But it was, as far as I know, not the largest. I believe Hydra was larger. Hydra is almost surely the largest now that White House is gone. But even when White House was around, I believe Hydra, in terms of volume of sales, number of users, number of vendors, and so forth, was larger. To give you some idea of how well this encryption really does work, well, in the summer of 2018, the U.S. Department of Justice, U.S. Department of Homeland Security, U.S. Secret Service, Drug Enforcement Administration, it's a lot of organizations working together, U.S. Postal Inspection Service teamed up. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 federal government agencies all teamed up. And you know how many arrests that they made from these vendors on, they didn't mention which market they were on, but one of these markets, And they said they teamed up to arrest more than 35. Okay, so White House, I just mentioned, had around 5,000 active vendors in its heyday. I'm not sure how many are on Hydra at present, but there are thousands more on Hydra. And 5 U.S. government agencies teamed up and were only able to take down 35 of these thousands of vendors. Does the anonymity that is sort of baked into the Tor network and I2P work? Obviously, it does. One last reaction, basically, to this hideous Norton article. They're talking about the dark web, and for some reason they bring up a VPN. Normally speaking, you would not want to use a VPN while browsing a darknet. Now, some VPNs will have what's called Onion over VPN. So it connects you to a VPN server and then to the Onion network, to the Tor network, through using their servers. Now, whether or not that's as secure or more secure, less secure than just using the Tor browser, I can't say at this point. It's probably better to just use the Tor browser, but truthfully, I don't know. And perhaps I should make another video about that. Do some research, make another video. But it is funny that they mention a VPN, because it's like, if you're just using the Tor browser, you wouldn't want to add a VPN on top of that normally. Now, if you're in one of those countries or regions where your ISP may restrict your internet access, if they even detect that you're using the Tor browser, well, then you could just use a dang bridge. You don't need to use a VPN. Because what a VPN does, let me just touch on this real quickly, and maybe I'll talk about it more in a future video, but using a VPN in conjunction with the Tor browser, what it's going to do is it's going to force your traffic to sort of surface. Now, if you are browsing, let me back up and say, let's assume you're browsing the actual Tor darknet, because using the Tor browser on the regular World Wide Web is, well, I talk about it in my VPN video, but basically it's pointless. You may as well just use a VPN if you're on the regular World Wide Web. But if you are browsing the Tor darknet, or any other darknet for that matter, using VPN in conjunction with that is going to force your traffic to sort of surface onto the regular, the regular World Wide Web, which is, the servers, your VPN servers, assuming it's not Onion over VPN, but just a regular Joe VPN, those servers are operating on the World Wide Web. So you're forcing your traffic to surface and enter the World Wide Web and then go back into the darknet, essentially, is what you're doing. Depending on exactly how you have it configured, that is probably what's going to be happening. You're essentially going to be using your VPN's server as a sort of exit node back into the Tor network or to whatever darknet you're using, that's kind of compromising your security. And the only thing it's gaining you is potentially, if you configure it correctly, you are going to be hiding the fact that you are using a darknet browser. That's it. But that can be, hiding the fact that you're using a darknet browser, at least the Tor browser, can be accomplished pretty easily using bridges. A VPN boosts your privacy when surfing the dark web? No, it absolutely does not. Maybe if you're using Onion over VPN, because then you could do, Tor browser, VPN server, and then the VPN server connects to another server that will connect into the Tor network. All right, so I'm signing out, guys. Thanks for watching, and please like and subscribe, and stay tuned for future videos. Peace out.